Hi, welcome. It's Martha from OurBrainBank, and today we have a very special guest with Trish Hevel, who is CEO of the Brain Donor Project, and I'll let her tell you all about it. Go ahead, Tish, and thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Yeah, thank you. And thanks everybody for taking a couple minutes to learn about this. I know it's not everybody's favorite lunchtime topic, but as I tell a lot of people with a lot of different patient advocacy groups, you know, it's the one definite thing: we're all gonna die someday. And so if you start thinking about whether you can make a gift as your last act, it's really something that's incredibly valuable to science. So let me launch right into this presentation. Ask questions when you feel like it, or Martha, if you prefer that people save them till the end, that's fine too, whatever works best. Here we go. Okay, so I am with the Brain Donor Project, which is a not-for-profit that supports the brain banks of the National Institutes of Health. I'll tell you a little bit about how that structure works. But the reason that we exist is because it's critical to find answers about brain disease. The problem is that it is very urgent for a couple of reasons. One, we need to find answers quickly. There's too many people suffering. Plus, the actual retrieval of the brain must happen very quickly upon death. So it's important that people know about this and their options now. So here's the reason it's urgent. Right now, more than 50 million Americans have some kind of neurologic disease or disorder. That's nearly 1 in 5 of us. And it's all kinds of things. Could be dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, autism, traumatic brain injury, brain cancer, and the list goes on and on. The problem is it's going to get worse. As we age, our chances of being diagnosed with a neurologic disorder only increase. And since Americans are living longer than ever, you can see where this is heading. So those shortages will slow progress. The breakthroughs are desperately needed in almost every category of brain disorder. And the scientists firmly believe that while there are a lot of things they can clone and replicate, there is no substitute for donated human brain tissue. In fact, most of them believe that when it comes to neuroscience, it is the most precious resource known to man. The problem is that not enough people know about it, or they think that brain donation, that they have a lot of misperceptions of brain donation. For example, the first thing most people believe, at least that I hear, is that organ donation includes brain donation. It doesn't. You need to make separate arrangements. It's not part of what the organ procurement organizations routinely handle. Also, it is not the same as body donation. The brain is so much more valuable for neuroscience than it is for anatomical study, which is what body donation is about. A lot of people also believe that only diseased brains are needed, and this is wrong. And I love telling people who are connected with a disease advocacy group about this, because it's another way that family members can help support the research. You know, so-called control brains or non-diseased brains are just as valuable, if not more so, when it comes to comparative science. Also, you don't have to worry about it being disfiguring. The brain is removed through the back of the head, so an open casket is still an option. And when donating to one of the brain banks of the NIH, there is no additional cost to the family. So I like to tell people just briefly that we learned about all this the hard way. My dad was diagnosed with Lewy bodies dementia back in late 2014, and we didn't even know what that was at the time. So in our research about it, we came to find out that brains of patients with Lewy bodies were needed at the time, that researchers thought they were onto something. So we hurried up and figured out how to do it. Oh, let me go back here real quick. The problem was, though, that by the time we figured it all out, it was very complicated at the time, and we told a lot of friends about it, and they wanted to know, and it was too complicated. So we got in touch with the NIH to figure out how we could support them. One of the things we learned right away at this, there are 2 major benefits of brain donation to the family. One of them is you get a copy of neuropathological findings. With the neurodegenerative diseases, this can be very valuable because often it's the most definitive diagnosis that we'll receive. In fact, these are actual histology images of my dad's brain that shows the protein deposits that that are the hallmark of Lewy bodies. And the other thing, the other benefit is, and I know this sounds corny, but there is a real palpable sense of comfort that comes from donating a loved one's brain. It's almost as if after all that suffering, something positive could come out of this experience. So we started the Science of Supporting Science is how we take a look at this when we launched the Brain Donor Project in October of 2016. And what it is a website that allows people to go to one place to get their questions answered and then begin the process of becoming a brain donor. As I mentioned, we support the NeuroBiobank of the NIH in its efforts to supply these tissues to neuroscientists. Our focus is on simplifying the process for brain donation and on raising awareness of the critical need for it. So we sort of function as a conduit to the brain banks within the NeuroBiobank. This is a little depiction of how that works. We send to those particular locations, and there are 6 of them that serve the public at UCLA, the University of Miami in Florida, Mount Sinai, Harvard, and the University of Maryland at Baltimore. So what the NeuroBiobank is a little unusual because it's the nation's only federated network of brain banks. It distributes tissue based on the merits of the study period, which is a little bit different. Prior to the establishment of the NeuroBiobank, most brain banks were housed at teaching hospitals and certain universities. And it became clear that it was that there were at least some restrictions placed on getting the tissue. A lot of times scientists had to have an affiliation. And so the NIH decided, we got to make this stuff a whole lot more accessible to scientists if we're going to advance this science faster. So these protocols have been very helpful. It also accepts and encourages the donation of control brains. Not all brain banks do. There are stringent transparency and publication requirements because it's pretty critical that scientists need to be able to build on each other's findings, and having that as a requirement helps that along quite a bit. The other thing that's interesting is it supports academia and industry because, as I mentioned, you never know where the brilliance is going to come from. And even though we're not able to take brain donations from outside of the country, the NeuroBiobank does distribute tissues internationally. About 30% of what they ship goes overseas. So that's a little bit about the background of the NeuroBiobank. The Brain Donor Project then was founded exclusively to support those brain banks within the NeuroBiobank. This website we developed helps answer people's questions about brain donation and then begin the process of becoming a donor. Our FAQs are pretty robust. We walk through the process and we try to anticipate what people may be curious about with it. Once those questions are satisfied, there's a brief online form for people to start the process. It's mainly contact information, but you also are able to do it on behalf of someone else. And based on the information provided, we share that with the brain bank that makes the most sense. Once that form is submitted, then, as I said, we share it and we tell you to keep an eye out for the papers that will come from the brain bank, the consent and release forms that are the second step in brain donation. So here's how it works upon death. Once someone fills out those forms, sends them back to the brain bank, then they become a registered future donor of that brain bank. Brain bank also shares all kind of information with the family for what needs to happen at time of death. And the most important thing is that a family member needs to notify the brain bank as quickly as possible, ideally within an hour or 2. At that point, the brain bank makes arrangements for the body to be transported someplace local. Oftentimes it can be the funeral home that the family is working with, but if not, then another medical or mortuary facility is identified for that to happen. So the body is transported to that location. The brain bank sends a pathologist there to remove the brain, and then the pathologist ships that brain to the brain bank. All of that is done at no cost to the family. Then the body is released to the family for whatever funeral, burial, or cremation arrangements have been made. So a little bit about who's signing up with us to be brain donors. As I mentioned, we were founded and we launched the website in October of 2016. So we're about 3.5 years old now, and about 8,500 people have signed up from across the country. About a third of them are controls, which is really valuable. They age from very young to older. They represent all 50 states and more than 160 categories of neurologic disorder. We had a little bit of a huge bump in October of 2018 when National Geographic featured us, which led to an incredible increase in signups. It was a really good match for us. But that's basically what we do. We help the NeuroBioBank get the word out about the critical need for this. So that's the nutshell. I always tell people, when you're thinking about your end of life plans, consider brain donation. It's something that is much easier if it's planned in advance and things have to happen so quickly. And the important things are, if you decide it's for you, to register and tell your family, because those are the people who will be, tasked with seeing your wishes through. And for more information, we are at braindonorproject.org. Great place to go. Check it out and see if you'd like to begin the process. I think my last slide. Oh, there's a video, but I'm not going to show you. It's on our website. I'm not going to take the time here about how this all came to be and why it's so important to science. And at that point, I would like to entertain any questions you may have. Martha, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share for now. So.
Thank you, Tish. That was really very informative and interesting. So I was also surprised. I just assumed, actually, I had written this in the Facebook post that you had to be 18, because it seems like you have to be 18 for anything. So that's really interesting that children can sign up too. Maybe I'll sign up my son. It'll be a cool science project for him.
There are a lot of childhood diseases and disorders, and so parents can sign up on behalf of their children, mainly for that reason. So yeah, but other than that, you do have to be 18.
And then people do have to be U.S. residents, correct?
Yes, and anticipate dying here. It's hard, we've talked to people who spend a lot of time overseas, and it's like, we could register you, but if you wind up passing when you're not in this country, the whole process of donation just becomes too tricky and too time consuming in order for it to, work out correctly.
And what do you, how much contact do you have with the researchers who are actually using the tissue?
That's a good question, because, at the Brain Donor Project, we're not scientists, but the NeuroBioBank does a phenomenal job of interfacing with the scientists that need these tissues. In fact, you can look at their website if you'd like. It's at neurobiobank.nih.gov. And if you go there, it talks about brain donation, and it says, oh, you're here, are you here because you'd like to be a brain donor? That's fantastic. We need you really bad. And then it links to our site as sort of the intake arm. But it also has a very robust section for scientists. And it says, if you're a scientist if you're here because you need tissue for your investigation, then open a password protected account, tell us a little bit about your credentials, and then tell us about the study that you need tissue for. Once that is completed, then scientists can basically look at the supplies. And it's really fascinating and incredibly robust resource, because generally speaking, the tissue is, half of it is frozen and half of it is fixed. There are different tools that scientists can use on those different kinds of tissue samples based on how they were preserved. But when I talk to young scientists about this resource, they get really excited, because it's like, name a disorder, age-matched controls, which is what they desperately need for comparative science, and they can scroll through. They make their request online. The NeuroBioBank tries to get back to scientists within 24 hours with an answer to whether or not they have what they need. And then the brain banks they post all their supplies to this particular site, and then they start shipping. So it's an incredible resource for scientists. And they interface a lot with them because they have to sometimes talk through the request. If it's like, oh, you need too much of this, you shouldn't really need that much, what are you trying to do? Because they see themselves as stewards for this very precious resource.
So I I connected to the Brain Donor Project org. What was the other org you mentioned?
The NeuroBioBank, which is the the NIH. That's the brain banks that we support, and that one's at neurobiobank.nih.gov. So that is the actual brain banks. That's the structure of brain banks that we support.
Okay.
So you'll notice if you follow the somebody put it in. Good job, Martha. If you follow the path towards navigating to become a brain donor, it winds up linking to us. But when it says for researchers, and they also publish in their, that's where the scientists are required to publish their findings using donated brain tissue if they actually get them from the bank. So there's a lot of solid information and information that's way above my pay grade. Because I'm not a scientist, I just like to think that we're supporting the science of advancing science. So
if I sign up, I live with my wife right now, and if I sign up for this today, I will have forgotten by the time she gets home tonight. I need to find out if I can get, during the sign up process, if I can get some kind of email notification that you're in the process of signing up. That helps remind. Is that doable?
We haven't routinely done that, but the portion that you do online is really brief. It's mainly contact information and your birth date and a neurologic diagnosis. And basically at the end of all that, you just hit submit. And then there's a pop-up window that says, hey, thanks for doing that. Keep an eye out now for the consent and release forms from your brain bank. You will also, as part of that sign-up form, choose whether you'd like to receive those forms via US mail or email. So the follow-up that will happen from that is automatic. The brain bank gets in touch with you. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I'm looking at the sign-up page now. It's just asking for all the information and preferred method of contacts.
Yeah. And then the information that you get from the brain bank is a little more extensive. You're signing up to you're signing a medical records release, and it just is a little more involved. But this first step's real easy.
Good, thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
Can you send yourself an email, or can you send your wife an email maybe to remind her to talk to you about this evening?
I'm going to.
Good answer.
Tish, that's really interesting what you're just saying, that the scientists who use the tissue need to share their results, because I know from talking to doctors is everyone says, yes, we want to cure all cancers. We're all going to work together. But the reality is it's kind of competitive, and they want to be the one to discover something. And same with drug and device manufacturers. They want to be the ones to do it, and they don't necessarily want to share their results.
Yeah, it used to be much more problematic, but I think people are coming around to the idea that nobody works in a silo here, and that we all have to be able to, build on the data, and the data, plus this precious resource is something that no one owns, so it should be a public resource. I don't know if you remember when President Obama launched what he called the cancer moonshot, and he put Joe Biden in charge of it after his son had died. And so the first thing people were asking him, like, what are you finding out? Pretty early on, he said, the problem I'm finding out is that people don't talk to each other. And that's a big problem in medical research. And it had been for a long time. It is in a lot of industries where, intellectual property is so valued. But what we're seeing is that folks are becoming a whole lot more open to recognizing that we're not going to progress fast enough. There's a desperate need to see some progress in neuroscience. You know, we haven't had a good new drug in 20 years for most major brain diseases, and treatments are lagging. So, you know, there is an urgency that borders desperation in some areas, because we gotta fix the suffering and death that's going on from these diseases. The answers just can't come fast enough.
Well, keep in mind also, this is a voting year, and voting years tend to not focus on the right stuff. So,
Yeah, we'll see.
I think this is something everyone can agree that is a good thing to do. And I wonder, you must have a lot of interest. I know, I forget the name of it, but the thing that the football players get from the brain injuries.
That's a CTE, chronic
CTE,
traumatic encephalopathy, and it's linked to traumatic brain injuries and repeated concussions. So there is a brain bank that focuses, not within the neurobiobank, a separate one that really works closely with professional athletes to try to retrieve those brains. And, you know, they're doing a really good job with their research. So yeah, but we have all kinds of things we do, because that one's kind of exclusive with professional athletes, but there's plenty of other people, you know, weekend athletes and other people who've just been in accidents, veterans who've been exposed to a traumatic brain injury. So there are a lot of those. We've also worked real closely with many different patient advocacy groups. The Parkinson's, all three of the major Parkinson's NGOs have done campaigns with us, and that's, you know, the neurodegenerative diseases are probably the largest single category of the dementias, Parkinson's, and ALS. And I think part of the reason is there's to be able to get sort of a synopsis of a postmortem report is very valuable to the families once we know more about many of these diseases. The fact that having that information from a postmortem report is going to be even more valuable. And in the case of brain cancer, it's kind of interesting. Martha, I think I mentioned this to you, but, you know, initially the brain banks weren't accepting brain cancer patients because the thinking was that the treatments did such damage to the surrounding tissue that it might not be viable for research. And it wasn't long ago that the brain banks decided, no, we need to study what these treatments are doing to brain tissue, as well as the other, you know, any other aspect of what's going on with brain cancer. So they started accepting all those cases a little while ago. And prior to that, there really wasn't, you're right, there really wasn't a good repository. There were biorepositories at certain hospitals that would take, you know, pieces of tissue that were retrieved. But looking at the organ in its entirety with a cancer that is brain-centered is kind of critical. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
So are they, forgive my ignorance, but are they getting medical history on the patient when the brain is donated? They know the medical history of the patient?
Yes, that's not a dumb question at all, because it is important to do that. And on some patients, you get more than others. You can imagine that the more preclinical data they have on a brain, the more valuable it's going to be. So a lot of times we have clinicians sending their patients to us to sign up now so that we work with them to be notified when that happens. And then so, you know, for example, if there is tissue stored someplace that was removed from the patient, to be able to connect all those dots is incredibly valuable. One of my big challenges is making sure my biggest challenge is to get the word out, but especially for people who've been involved in clinical trials and longitudinal studies and have had genetic testing done. I mean, it closes the loop on significant research. And so it's funny because so many neuroscientists have said they've been reticent to approach that with their patients because they don't want to say, oh, these things may not work and you're going to die. But as I said, we're all going to die. So yeah, the more data we have on a brain, the more valuable it is. But the converse of that is also true with control brains. or even if a person has not been involved in preclinical or, premortem studies, that doesn't mean it's not valuable either. There's a whole lot they can find out about the brain with the assessments that they do once it is removed. I like to tell the young scientists at conference where they're, exhibiting all this like really high-tech imaging equipment and blah, blah, blah. They still need to point those things somewhere, and donated brain tissue shows them what to go looking for and where. So all of these technologies, I feel like, work hand in hand, hopefully, to advance things.
And I would think it would be especially interesting for GBM because it is so different, each patient. So I imagine the researchers would find that incredibly useful to see which patient had which treatment, and what were the effects. I wonder if we could get one of the researchers who've used the tissue to talk to this group. Do you think you could?
I could look into it for you. I could look into it for you. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Excellent.
Sure.
All right. Does anyone have other questions?
No, I was going to say we are fairly rare among the available brains, so it may well be worth their time to do it.
Yeah, and I know we've been telling our medical advisors, who are some of the top neuro-oncologists in the world, and the two I talked to recently weren't familiar with the Brain Donor Project because it is new. So they were very excited because they had been doing it in a very small way, kind of on their own, because it's very difficult because it's expensive. It's difficult process topic for the families to talk about. So one neuro-oncologist we work with who's at Columbia, he said in 20 years, he's had maybe 5 patients that actually did it because they would have to pay for it. And you think, well, you shouldn't have to pay for that. That's just awful.
That's how things have changed so much, Martha. It's like the NIH just decided, 6 or 7 years ago when the NeuroBiobank was founded, that it's like, we got to make this easier for people. We have to remove the cost, so the fact that the NIH reimburses for those costs of retrieval and transport and shipping, because it's expensive as heck. They have to have very specialized freezers and all these backup systems because you can't have a failure. It's a very big deal to have that infrastructure, and it's awesome that the folks at the NIH recognize how important it is to help families do it.
Great. Do we have any other questions for Tish?
Are you having a good week?
I am. Thank you. How about you?
So far, so good.
Good. That's a nice question. Thank you. No, I'm happy to be of help. You can, if you have further questions that you just don't want to ask in this forum, that's fine. There's a contact us page on the site. You can shoot me a note, and I'd be happy to talk with anybody.
I was wondering, what is the estimated cost that you guys incur to make this happen? Do you have a ballpark?
Well, we, as the Brain Donor Project, don't. We're just a not-for-profit that supports these efforts. And I don't really know what the average is, but these are the things that would be factored into it. The transportation of the body, the pathologist's fee for the removal and his or her travel to get there, the shipping of it to the brain bank, and then once it's at the brain bank, the lifespan is almost infinite. There are brains that have been stored, either fixed or frozen, for 40 or 50 years, for as long as they've been brain banking, that are still usable. It's not like they expire. So there are significant costs to doing what needs to be done to retrieve these, but in terms of an average, I don't have that.
Actually,
I don't have that. Sorry.
I have that because I was curious too, and I asked the researcher I just mentioned, and he's estimated for them to do it in New York City, where they have a lot of resources, is about $2,000 per person. And I imagine it's way more if you live in, I said, Tish, you said you have people in Alaska and Hawaii, and that's
Yeah,
Gotta
that
be.
would be retrieval costs.
Mhm.
That's what I know about retrieval costs. But the rest of it, you know, the storage, the distribution, the blah blah blah, that's where it really gets expensive. So,
Storage has to be costly, just considering the storage of fertility. Just knowing
right,
that is so expensive. It has to be. It has to be
right,
extremely costly.
yeah. And yeah, you're right, Martha. We have recovered from all 50 states, including very remote parts of Alaska. So they have a really solid network of recovery partners, and that would be pathologists and, you know, some people who work at coroner's office that can be called upon for these kinds of things everywhere. So.
Great. Okay. Well, if no one else has questions for Tish, I think we'll let you go. Or you're welcome to
Sounds good.
stay, and
Sounds
then
good.
and so thank you very much. This was excellent and so informative. It's just really interesting. I mean, I have an 11-year-old kid, and he's always studying interesting science things. So I'm kind of a nerd
Oh.
like that.
Tell
So
them to jump on and look around. That, you know, I love that you think it's interesting. It's obviously something I'm very passionate about. So thank you all for taking the time to learn a little bit more about it, and do what you got to do to stay well. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tish.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
You bet.
And bye. And so I think we have a couple new people here. We can stay on the rest of the call. We have about 20 minutes. I'm Martha Wilkie with OurBrainBank. I don't have GBM myself, but I work very closely with the founder, Jessica Morris, who's been living, she's a 4-year survivor. And Jessica started OurBrainBank when she's diagnosed, and our key tool is an app where you become part of a study of a pool of people with GBM. Sorry, it's hard to see. Whoops. But you track your symptoms every day, and you track your treatments, and then that data, it helps you because you can set up reminders, and you can keep a diary, and you see how your treatment's affecting your mood, your appetite, things like that. And then that data is then donated anonymously for research. So it helps researchers. And you can learn more and download at the Google Play or the App Store. You have to be on a smartphone, or you can do it on an iPad. It's a little tricky with getting it on the iPad, but I can help you with that if you want. So how is everyone doing this week? Oh, I think everyone's muted. Let me.
Oh.
You're good?
Yeah.
Great. You can unmute yourself, or I can unmute you if you need. Are people starting to, areas starting to open up a little bit?
Mm-hmm. We're opening up in Florida. Mm-hmm.
Does that concern you, or are you glad? Or both? It could be both, right?
Well, I stay in, I'm pretty recluse anyways. I stay inside most of the time, or I'm at the beach. So,
I think that's been a big thing around here. I'm in West Virginia now, and everybody's outside all the time because they work outside, but they're not within 60 yards of each other. So
yeah,
that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Have other folks been out, like having to do shopping or anything like that, and not had a mask or anything?
Yeah, it's about half and half here. I would guess, with the masks.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a bunch I wear around my neck because I have them for cycling. So I got my hair cut yesterday, and I had my first pedicure in a while. My running, I have to get pedicures, and I'm so excited. I haven't had a pedicure in 2 months. I don't get my toes painted.
Aw.
But she's going to put the cheese grater on my foot this time. You know, she just has to do a little bit of sanding. But, you know, when you haven't been in a while, she's going to have to really go at them. So
I wish my husband would do that. He refuses to do anything, and it's just not good.
Tell him just to not get them painted. And, you know, your toes feel so much better. And, you know, I still run about 20, 25 miles a week, and my toes hurt if I don't get them done. So.
What you could do is on your right or left foot, the middle toe, have them paint the nail black, telling you trying to lift just that finger. Sorry, just that toe.
Yeah. Yeah, I can cut my own fingernails, but cutting your toes well is hard.
Yeah.
It's better having somebody down there, doing it for you.
Mhm.
And and really, more and more guys are starting to go. I've kind of, at least in my area, I've made it a little more politically correct to get it done. So I don't know what the heck. It's and I got my hair cut. My hair was starting to look bad, so I told them, well, oh, and one good thing is it is in 6 days I turned 56. So it'll be my 4th birthday I've had since my surgery. I was hoping to have at least 2.
There you go. Are you getting
You doubled your expectations.
Yeah, that's great. That's better than the alternative.
Are you getting good gifts?
Well, I think every day I wake up, it's a good gift.
Yeah. But people that don't have these diseases don't think that way. So push it.
Yeah, and I wake up early, and I have a beautiful waterfront park. I'm the only guy sitting out there in the morning. It's right in my backyard, basically. So I tell people I have a huge yard that I don't have to do anything to. I have a whole group of people that cut it. So, and it's it's funny exactly how you look at life, now. And I tell people it's not all bad, because I was probably a little too into myself. I was going out with too many wild women, and now, if I go out with somebody, I want her to be older than me. I want her to be able to put up with, hey, I don't want to stay up past 10 o'clock. Those type of things. It's amazing how your perspective changes.
It does.
Yeah. And I miss going to church too. So, but one thing that they did at my church is they came by and they recorded a message from me. And during the church service, the online church service, I was in it. They surprised me. So,
did anybody else have like groups that they went to that are doing the online things like we are here?
Mm-hmm.
I recorded each of my sermons every week for both of my churches.
No, really, both of them.
Good.
Yeah.
No, you're Methodist, right?
Yeah.
And okay, that's what I thought. I'm Episcopalian. I'm not that different.
No.
So.
And then we have pastors that get together twice a week, and we do these kind of meetings just to talk about what's going on and how we're doing. So it's kind of neat.
And it helps me that, calling and seeing each other, and I'm at least gonna say that I appreciate this group, and unfortunately, we've had a few of us, pass away. But Hallie, I met you on this, right? And I've known you, feels like longer than 3 years, but must not be.
Well, are you at 4 years now?
No, I'm at 3.5.
Okay.
So
I probably met you right at the beginning.
for both of us, right? I guess because you're a little bit longer than me.
Yeah, I'm 4 years and 2 months.
Okay.
I still count months. I mean, every time the 8th of the month rolls around, in my mind, I'm celebrating. And I also look up to see exactly how many days I've been alive.
Yeah, well.
Each month. And I am at 1,643 now.
Oh, good.
Way to calculate it. And it just makes you really understand when when you equate, oh, my mom's 87, and you equate that into how long she's been alive. You can do it all by days. And it kind of makes it resonate how to stay in the moment and just live for today.
Yep.
No, it's actually, the glioblastoma has been a huge blessing to me.
Well, one thing, I don't know if any of you guys had this, but I was, my doctor thought I might have a bipolar disorder because I was having headaches and I was getting irrational. And I've gotten it all back. But the reason I was getting irrational, had bad headaches, is I had a massive brain tumor. And, finally somebody checked that. But I've really felt better than the year or two before I knew it. Because I'd have times when my headaches were so bad I couldn't function. And I'd get upset real easy. And I hardly ever get upset now. Ever since I took that big old thing out. Or most of it out.
And Bratton, how long did it take when you first went to your doctor complaining of headaches? How long was it between that time and you had an MRI?
Oh, probably 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
That seems nuts. Did you ask for one, or did you know to ask for one?
I didn't know to ask for one, because I kept making, how men are. I kept making excuses on what it might be. And then they gave me a CT scan and they came up with nothing. And then they finally gave me an MRI because I had a hard time keeping my balance. And I had a really big brain tumor and I had to get it operated on immediately. And so, and some people have asked questions, but mine grew where I fractured my skull in high school. So, people have asked and said, do you think it can have, I think it can have something to do with it, because at least online, it seems like a number of other people have had a brain tumor where they had a head injury when they were younger. So I don't think that's the case every time, but I think at least my anecdotal evidence says maybe so. So, and I knew another guy that got in a car wreck and hit his head, just different things that are anecdotal, I know, but I don't know that they're unrelated. But I think it's a great thing. It's good to see you guys online, and we're all different, but we're the same in that one sense of, and I pray for everybody whose name I have. I have 60 people on my prayer list now, and Hallie, you're on my prayer list. Just know that.
Bratton, thank you.
Every day.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you guys, believe it or not, I'm on continuing education and they're starting back. I still have my CPA certificate.
Isn't that wonderful?
I don't want to lose it. I don't work now, but I do projects for not-for-profits, but I like to have it. So, and after I do this class, I'll have on my continuing education for the year. So
Wow.
That's good.
That's way to go, Bratton.
All right. Well, you guys take care, and so good to see you.
Good
Oh,
to
wait.
see you.
All right, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday, Bratton.
Bratton, one quick thing. We're recording this for our YouTube. Do you want me to edit out the bit about the wild women, or should I leave that in?
Well, people know my reputation from years ago. And I didn't seek them out.
They just came to you.
They did.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife now, she went off the deep end and left me, and I would just be reading a book on the beach, I think, and I went out with some girls I shouldn't have, and they talked me into it, but I wasn't chasing them. It's amazing what happens to, middle-aged guys. But I had sports car. I don't have a car anymore, so I can't drive. So that helps me not get in any trouble. I don't drink and I don't drive.
So we should all sing happy birthday to him. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy
birthday to
Happy
you.
birthday. Oh, I think I have.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brad.
Latin.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to you.
So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
I
Bye,
get so
Brad.
excited about a birthday now. And back in the day, before I got sick, it wasn't as exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get upset or sad or anything. I'm just like, oh gosh, I made it.
Well, yeah, I'm 50. I'm about to be 56. People say, you know, how do you feel about that? I said, I hope to make it. Some people tell me old age is hell. I said, I hope to feel that. I love to feel old age. But one thing you guys may, but my father died he died at 55. So I've outlived my dad now. So, and it's just, I still feel him, and hopefully people can still feel my presence if I die soon, or even if I don't. But blessings to you guys. And if you're ever in Charleston, look me up. I live right downtown. So,
Very cool.
yeah. You see this crazy guy that's out there meditating on the grass? That might be me.
With your bow tie.
I'll wear my bow tie on Sundays, that's for sure.
I know.
Yeah, you've seen the picture. Yeah, I'll
That's
have it
your
on.
signature.
It is.
You do
I
wear.
have a whole group of it. Some people have asked me, do I really tie it? And I said, do I look like a person that wouldn't tie his own bow tie? Of course I tie those.
Ooh.
I'm a Charlestonian. We all tie our own bow ties. So I don't know. Okay, well, you guys take care, and I'm heading out.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
We only have a few minutes left, but I did want to bring up, the next Glioblastoma Awareness Day will be happening in July. It's supposed to be July 17th, but for boring reasons, it's going to be July 22nd. So we're going to be launching our GBM Bill of Rights with things like every patient should get a second opinion. Every patient should get MRI results within 24 hours. So we'll be asking people to, you can either do it in writing or you can do a video. We can even do it on the Zoom, because actually I did a call like that, a video with Jessica the other day, and it worked surprisingly well. So we'll be asking for examples of say someone who has to wait a week for an MRI result and how stressful that is, or if someone didn't get a second opinion who now realizes that she should have. So I'll be coming to all of you and asking if you want to, if you feel comfortable. Obviously you don't have to if you don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
This is July what? 22nd?
July 22nd, and we were hoping, last year there was an in-person event in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol with the senators who sponsored the day. And we don't know if that's going to happen this year. Nobody knows what's going to be happening in July. But we'll at least be doing an online celebration, and we'll have a petition, and we will have a press release, hope to get some press. So if you have local newspapers or television, radio that you can talk to, we can help you with that, give you a copy of our press release. And a really easy thing that anyone can do, and I did this myself last year when a person who was a beloved member of a small town near where I live, I read in the paper in his obituary that he died from GBM, and so I wrote a letter to the editor telling them about OurBrainBank and the Awareness Day, and they were very excited to get it. So I think I'll probably write an article with them this year. So anyone can do that, especially if you're in a small town. You can't just call up the New York Times and say, can I write an op-ed or can I write an article? But you definitely can call your little small town paper, because they're always looking for good articles.
Yeah. Speaking of the New York Times, Rod Nordland, who's a writer for the New York Times, I don't know if you've heard, he has glioblastoma. I've reached out to him a couple times. I think he's having a lot of issues. He's a really renowned author, writes about the Middle East, and as a reporter, then he wrote books. So
Yeah, I've heard. I think we have read. He's written about his GBM, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one article.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We read. Jessica told me about that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Would like to say welcome to the new people. I see Barbara, and we had someone else new, but I guess she left. If you want to say hello, it looks like your audio. You muted yourself, but if you don't want to, that's okay. That's perfectly fine.
Sometimes people are shy at the beginning.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and so if you want to learn more about Our Brain Bank, go to our website, OurBrainBank.org. That's OurBrainOrg. I'll put it in the chat. And learn about our study. And we hope to be, it's right, Our Brain Bank, brainbank.org. And we hope to be moving our study to a registry. So if you're already using our app, you don't need to do anything. It won't change. It will just, we hope to get on clinicaltrials.gov. So we get more and more people using the app and generating data for research. And that's what we're all about. Okay, and Jessica is our founder. She sends her regards. I think she couldn't make it today, but I hope she'll be here next week. And if anyone has ideas, if you want to hear a special guest, I thought that was really interesting today. So if you have anyone you want to suggest, definitely let me know. You can write me at martha@ourbrainbank.org, or if you don't remember that, you can message me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or there's a contact on our website too. So that's it. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And see you next Tuesday.
Thank you for hosting, Martha.
Sure. Okay. Bye.
Thanks.